cared for his people throughout history is still leading, protecting, and This constant focus on problems can create discouragement, anxiety, and hopelessness. However, Psalm 23 invites us to adopt a different perspective, one rooted in trust, thankfulness, and confidence in God's goodness. When we approach God with faith and gratitude, even before we see visible changes in our circumstances, we begin to experience a shift that starts deep within our hearts and minds. Faith is the ability to believe that God is working on our behalf, even when there is no immediate evidence of it. It is choosing to trust His promises when circumstances seem to suggest otherwise. Throughout Scripture, those who received God's blessings often demonstrated faith before their breakthrough arrived. They believed before they saw results. They trusted before the path became clear. In the same way, reading Psalm 23 with faith means declaring that God is leading, providing, and protecting us, even when challenges remain. It means believing that our current situation is not the final chapter of our story. This kind of faith changes how we respond to difficulties. Instead of being overwhelmed by fear, we become strengthened by hope. Instead of expecting failure, we begin anticipating God's guidance and provision. Gratitude works hand in hand with faith. When we intentionally thank God for what He has already done, we remind ourselves of His faithfulness. Gratitude shifts our attention away from what is missing and directs it toward the blessings that are already present. Even in difficult seasons, there is always something to be thankful for: life, family, health, opportunities, lessons learned, and the promise of God's presence. A grateful heart does not deny problems, it simply refuses to allow problems to become the sole focus of attention. It recognizes that God's goodness is still present, even in challenging circumstances. This shift in perspective can have a powerful impact on everyday life. When people live with gratitude, they often become more positive, resilient, and open to new possibilities. They are better able to recognize opportunities because they are not consumed by negativity. Their minds become more focused on solutions rather than obstacles. Gratitude creates emotional and spiritual strength, allowing people to move forward with confidence rather than remaining trapped in fear and frustration. Faith and gratitude also deepen our relationship with God. Instead of approaching Him only with requests, we begin to approach Him with appreciation and trust. We acknowledge His past faithfulness and believe in His future provision. This attitude strengthens our confidence that He is actively involved in our lives, guiding us even when we cannot see the full picture. As we continue reading Psalm 23 and meditating on His promises, gratitude helps us remember that God is our shepherd, while faith helps us trust where He is leading. Over time, this combination of faith and gratitude can transform not only how we think but also how we live. We become less controlled by fear, less discouraged by setbacks, and more confident in God's ability to provide. Our circumstances may not change overnight, but our perspective begins to change immediately. And often it is this renewed perspective that allows us to recognize the doors God is opening, the opportunities He is providing, and the blessings He has been preparing all along. Faith gives us the courage to move, and gratitude gives us the eyes to see that God's goodness has never left us. One of the most encouraging truths found in Psalm 23 is the refrain, "He restores my soul." These words reveal an important principle about the way God works in our lives. Many people pray for financial breakthroughs, new opportunities, success, and prosperity, but often overlook the condition of their hearts and minds. They focus entirely on changing their circumstances while carrying emotional wounds, fear, discouragement, and doubt within them. Yet God understands that lasting transformation begins on the inside. Before He elevates a person into a new season of blessing, He often restores the soul. He heals what is broken, strengthens what has become weak, and renews the faith that has been worn down by life's challenges. Life has a way of exhausting the human spirit. Financial struggles, disappointments, failed plans, and repeated setbacks can leave a person feeling defeated. Even the strongest individuals can become discouraged when they face one obstacle after another. Over time, this discouragement can develop into a mindset of limitation. People begin to expect failure instead of success. They lose confidence in their abilities and become hesitant to pursue new opportunities. They may even start believing that their situation will never improve. This is why restoration is so important. God knows that before someone can fully embrace a new chapter, they often need healing from the burdens of the previous one. When God restores the soul, He renews hope. Hope is one of the most valuable gifts a person can possess because it creates the expectation that better days are possible. A person with hope can continue moving forward despite difficulties because they believe their current situation is not permanent. Restoration reminds us that our setbacks do not define us and that our mistakes do not determine our future. God's grace is greater than our failures, and His plans are bigger than our disappointments. Restoration also brings clarity and wisdom. When people are overwhelmed by fear or frustration, it becomes difficult to make wise decisions. Negative emotions can cloud judgment and lead to choices based on panic rather than purpose. However, when God restores the soul, He brings peace to the mind and direction to the heart. Suddenly, opportunities that were once hidden become visible. Solutions begin to emerge. New ideas develop. Confidence returns. The individual becomes better equipped to recognize and pursue the opportunities that God places before them. This process of restoration does not always happen instantly. Sometimes it occurs gradually through prayer, scripture, reflection, and daily trust in God. As a person spends time in God's presence, their perspective begins to change. Fear starts losing its grip. Worry becomes less dominant. Faith grows stronger. They begin to see themselves not as victims of their circumstances, but as people loved, guided, and empowered by God. This inner transformation prepares them for the blessings and responsibilities that may lie ahead. God's goal is not simply to give temporary relief. He desires to create lasting change. A restored heart is better prepared to manage success, handle challenges, and remain faithful through every season of life. When God elevates someone after restoring them, the blessing becomes more meaningful because it is built upon a strong spiritual foundation. They are able to appreciate the journey, use their resources wisely, and remain grateful for God's faithfulness. The promise, "He restores my soul," is a reminder that God cares about more than external circumstances. He cares about the person behind the struggle. He sees every disappointment, every worry, and every hidden pain. Before opening new doors, He often strengthens the one who will walk through them. Before increasing resources, He develops character. Before elevating a person, He restores their spirit. And when restoration takes place, it becomes clear that the greatest miracle is not merely a change in circumstances, but a transformed heart that trusts God completely and is ready for the blessings He has prepared.